Welcome back to another episode of Light Beer, Dark Money. I'm Sean Noble.
I'm Chris Clements.
And it is day 100.
How did we get here?
How did we get here?
Yeah.
Trump
What
administration-
100 days it's been.
It's been a heck of 100 days. And I will say, when we were about 30 or 40 days into it, it was feeling like the world, was changing. Everything was right. And there were all the good things.
Yes. His polling
Everything.
was great.
The
30, 40 days in.
The appointments were happening. People were getting confirmed. We only had the one that had to drop out.
Thankfully.
Yeah.
Matt Gaetz.
And then
doing infomercials now.
Right. Then the tariff issue, ebbed and flowed, and that's where we are.
Yeah. It's created a lot of anxiety
And
to a lot of people.
here we are 100 days in on the 99th day. Because of all the discussion about Canada, Trump completely changed the dynamic of the
Yes.
election, and the conservatives did not win.
Yeah.
The
Pierre
liberals won.
Poilievre, when Trump was elected, was up by 20 or 30 points, depending on the polling that you were looking at. He was going to cruise
Everyone
to an
was
election.
thinking this was happening.
This was going to happen, and then Trump decided to double down on the idea of making Canada the 51st state. He started a trade war with them out of the gate, which looks ill-advised, and that flipped that election.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It just completely reversed.
And Pierre Poilievre didn't know how to pivot
Well,
either. So
you
there's the
couldn't.
Trump part, but then there's the candidate part.
Well, but to be fair, the Trump part was so much of it.
Yeah.
Because, Pierre is a good candidate. He's a very good messenger.
Very much so.
And, we've had people from Canada. We've talked about Canadian politics. And it has been a disappointment to watch the tide turn. And now Canada's going to be stuck, frankly, under the same type of leadership as Justin Trudeau.
With what the Wall Street Journal termed a technocrat.
A technocrat.
Former Mark Carney,
never a good
former head of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England during Brexit.
Yeah, the guy's not even been in Canada for
a
couple decades.
No. But
maybe 8 decades.
And from a societal perspective, Canada continues a long slide. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens under his leadership.
Yeah.
Now, I did read in the Wall Street Journal as well that Parliament is still a bit undecided, and he might not even have a majority.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't.
So that's gonna impede his ability to do exactly everything he wants to do.
We will circle back and have another discussion about Canada and the results.
Yeah.
But it is indicative of kind of the chaos
Yes.
of the first 100 days. Mostly good chaos, but some not so great chaos.
Well, and that's reflected in the polling that's come out recently with both ABC, NBC, I think CBS, where Trump's a little bit underwater on some issues, including the economy, which has traditionally been his strong suit.
Absolutely.
People are not happy about how he has not handled inflation, and the tariffs and how they've been communicated or executed have been a disaster.
It's been a challenge. Now, can it come together? Yes.
Well, thankfully, he's having Scott Bessent out communicating to the markets in a clear and decisive fashion as to what the strategy is, what they're trying to achieve. Because if you have Peter Navarro do it, that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And the first several weeks when they were rolling out the tariffs, he seemed to be the point man, and that was a bad idea.
That roiled the market significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and then you've got a tax bill that's in limbo right now in the Congress. They want to get it done by the end of May.
Well, they now changed it to July 4th as the new deadline.
Okay. Well, they keep pushing it. They keep pushing it, and they need to come to the Republic. This is one thing where we have to give props to the Democrats. If you remember the first 100 days of the Biden administration, they pushed some legislation through.
Yeah.
And they do it by cropping people off the knees. They get their caucus together, and basically that was Nancy Pelosi saying, "You will do X, Y, and Z, or else this is what will happen to you." There's some value in that, I think, when you're dealing with big policy prescriptions.
Right.
And the Republicans don't do that. It's about consensus and nuance and debate, and that's all great. But when the presidency is on the line here, when your own seats are on the line of something that the president promised that he would do, you've got a ticking time bomb on both the debt and these taxes at the end of the year. You must act.
Yeah.
And you must act in unison to give clear and concise messaging to the markets of what you want to achieve. And that's a big problem for the Republicans right now.
It is. It is a big problem for the Republicans. I feel like they'll get there, in part because if the tariff stuff doesn't get resolved, and that 90-day pause comes up the end of June, mid to end of June, so we'll have a better sense. He's supposed to be announcing these deals.
200 deals, or
something like
that.
That.
Even the Treasury Secretary had to put a little color on that there's like these sub deals happening amongst the larger deals. But the big deal that they seem to be touting because of J.D. Vance is the possible deal with India,
right,
as a counterpoint to China. And that's been a deal that's been on the table for several decades. And I'm at a loss as to understanding as to why.
Several decades?
Well, I mean, in terms of increasing trade with India as a counterpoint to China, and making that relationship really a much more important relationship in some ways. And we haven't really, I don't think we've capitalized on it as a country.
Well, India hasn't become a big enough market for us to, export our stuff to. We've certainly used services from India.
Yes.
The brain power from India.
But if we can open up that market in a dramatic way, that would be a tremendous win for our companies here in the U.S.
Well, they need a win. I do worry about where things are going, and the things to watch are new truck sales. They're down. The amount of shipping that's headed from China here is going down. Retailers are a little nervous. The Halloween. Did you know that there's a Halloween costume association?
I wasn't aware of that.
There is, no. And they were flashing the warning signs
because all their costumes come from China.
Yes, all the costumes come from China. 99% of costumes come from China, and it made me realize. And actually, this was I have to give props to Alyssa, my wife.
You're always giving props to Alyssa.
Well, it's because she is the one who makes me who I am. I was pointing this out, and she was a little bit flabbergasted. She worked on the Hill for a few years, and we've never heard of this association, so they didn't really care about.
They're not a big lobbyist there.
Well, maybe now.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, heaven forbid that people reuse a costume," and it made me realize that if this were President Bernie Sanders having a tariff war with China, which he would.
Of course he would.
The left would be lauding the environmental benefit, the crackdown on consumerism, and making sure that we preserve things. It would be a completely different tone coming from the mainstream media. Oh, we're protecting the environment because we're cramping down on consumerism, and we're not going to be as wasteful, and people will use their costumes more than once.
We can go back to the 1970s and make your costume like my mom did.
Yeah. I don't know.
My mom made all my costumes.
I didn't even know you could buy costumes until I was an adult.
Well, the costume business has to be in jeopardy because Party City is out of business.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So we learned that over the weekend.
Well, I'll tell you, the big indicator, as everyone knows, the Halloween stores that pop up in the empty storefronts around town, they usually pop up around July.
Yeah.
So watch for those, because if they don't pop up, that's a pretty good leading indicator. That
I'm sure we'll solve the costume crisis before July.
You think so?
I think so.
All right.
We seem to be moving in that direction.
The thing, but the main point I was thinking was just how absurd it is that it's the left that is screaming about these tariffs against, and Trump. And tariffs are their thing, Bernie's thing. And if it were
Oh, of
President
course.
Bernie Sanders, they would all be lauding how great this is. So,
Well,
just the hypocrisy.
yeah, the other interesting thing that I was thinking about this morning in terms of the first 100 days is how traditional conservative media has been abundantly critical of this administration on so many levels.
Yeah.
Both on the tariffs and also how they've handled immigration. With the mass deportations of, terrorists and criminals.
Right.
Andy McCarthy of National Review has been immensely critical of the matters of law and what have you, and he's gotten a lot of backlash for that as well.
I'm sure.
And the Wall Street Journal has gone. They used to be center right; they've gone center left, both on their coverage.
Center left?
Yes, I believe that.
Really?
Both in their coverage and their.
You really think the
pages.
editorial page has gone center left?
I do believe that. Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. If you look at the editorials that are coming out right now between the stalwart writers, Holman Jenkins and Peggy Noonan, it's very anti-Trump. It's very anti-whatever he's doing.
Okay. So let's
Not that
clarify.
there's
Let's
any-
clarify our language then. I wouldn't call that center left. Because just because it's anti-Trump doesn't mean it's not right.
Actually, I think a lot of it is wrong.
Well, what I mean by not right or left.
The language that they're using is the language of the left.
Interesting.
So
So you and I think about this differently.
That's fine. We can think about it differently. That's good. It's good for us to disagree on some things.
I mean, we
now
do
the
disagree with a number
the
of things,
the
but-
the news reporting has been leaning left for years
yeah.
in terms of its headlines
Yeah,
and
I mean,
and
you know,
its slant.
I mean,
in
I
the
think
Wall
that's
Street
true
Journal.
of
There's
most mainstream media. So.
Well, some people consider the Wall Street Journal further left than the New York Times in terms of its news reporting.
Well, it kind of depends on the day.
Yeah.
Because sometimes New York Times is way better than I expect, and obviously sometimes much worse.
I think that's just kind of where we're at.
Yeah, back and forth.
But I think traditional conservative media kind of feels like they have to call the balls and strikes more so now than they have in the past.
Probably. The one thing
when it comes to Trump, at least.
but we do have to give some credit where credit is due. I mean, when you look at the border, I mean, it is night and day. I mean, border crossings last month were 95%, down 95%.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is a trickle.
It proves that we did not need a new border bill.
No, exactly.
We just needed a new president.
We need a new president, and
I love that soundbite.
And it's not even. I mean, obviously, they did some things immediately, but there's a lot of things that take time to change. It was just the fact that we had a different president with a different mindset that people stopped trying to come. It wasn't that they're all getting caught or stopped. It's they stopped trying to come because they recognized, oh, this isn't a free pass anymore.
Well, I heard a perspective the other day, and this was great. What they said was, everyone who comes across has a cell phone. And so during the Biden administration, when you were caught and released, what do? Call your family, call your friends. Hey, the border's open. Come. I'm sure there's plenty of opportunity for you.
Yeah.
Now, what's happening? They come across, they're apprehended, they're put in jail, they're sent back.
Yeah. Well, and
they're calling back saying, don't come. It's absolutely closed.
Right. It is, but I will agree that there's been some challenges on the way that the cases are being adjudicated. I mean, the fact that we have kids that were deported, some that were born here.
But that was what they're claiming is that was the request of their mom,
parents?
Their parents.
Okay.
They're not separating families. That's the other piece of this. It's if
mom and dad are illegal,
if mom and dad are illegal, kids are born here. They're U.S. citizens by birth, which is an issue, I believe.
It's going to be litigated.
Yeah,
sure.
and I hope we litigate it all the way. But their dad's a criminal. Mom might have some issues. They get deported. What are they supposed to do? Leave the kids here with aunt and uncles or whatever? That they could do that, but
or they could go back,
or they can go back with their parents, and their parents are making that choice. Is my understanding.
Well, and it's I mean, and that's the thing is that people have to understand. This it is a risk. when you decide to come here illegally or overstay a visa or whatever, and start a family or have a family, you live in that risk.
Yeah.
That's going to happen.
Actually, going back to National Review, Rich Lowry actually had a really good article, I think a day or two ago, where he says the best policy is the self-deportation policy.
Yeah.
That is the best due process that immigrants who are here illegally can give themselves.
Right.
Just leave.
Just go back.
Just go back and
because then you get
apply.
a chance to start over.
Yes.
Because if you get deported, the chances
That's
of being able to come back are slim to none.
Yeah, almost zero.
Self-deportation is going to give you a better chance.
Yep. But it has been the most successful piece of the 100 days, for sure.
For sure.
And you can debate, the rounding up the gang members, but everybody who wants the gang members and terrorists to come back, go ahead, die on that hill.
Yeah.
Go die on that legal hill. Go die on that emotional hill. Go die on that hill.
No question. So
Andy McCarthy.
A lot of people. So I saw a poll that said that so of the people who believe that Trump's first 100 days is deserving of an F, I think it was like 45%. It's the highest number of any.
No, I think it has to do with the economy.
And I think I think it has to do with the deportation issue, because the left is really leaning in on that. So you have the hard left. So let's call it 25-30% of that number are people who are like, rah. And then the other 20%, 15 or 20% are people who are like, hey, he said he was going to fix the economy. I'm still hurting.
Yeah.
I don't see the inflation coming down. I worry about the tariffs. So yeah, that 45%.
Well, and that's people who don't understand that you can't move an aircraft carrier in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But
to their credit, I mean, I will say, the way Trump talks, he makes it sound like it can happen immediately.
Yes.
And people have expectations.
Yes.
When he said that he would end the Ukraine-Russia war on day one, he set an expectation that's not happened. I mean, it will end up being resolved. Probably nobody's going to be really happy about it, but it'll be resolved at some point. The dying will stop, hopefully, the killing. But it wasn't on day one.
Nope.
So you have to, it's that whole under promise, over perform.
Yeah, I think we would have been, with the Ukraine issue, I think we would have been a little bit further along if Mr. Zelensky had not come into the White House the way he did.
That set things back significantly.
Yeah, that was a month or two of negotiations that could have happened expeditiously if he had not come in after meeting with those Democratic senators and being coached up on being somewhat combative.
Right.
That was a bad idea.
Not a great idea.
So we are where we are.
And here we are. So I give the Trump administration overall grade of B- for the first 100 days.
Maybe I would say a straight B.
Maybe B. If it had been the first 60 days, he was definitely in the A.
Oh, absolutely.
But this tariff chaos has created a problem.
Yeah.
And that's made me, a little bit coming down. So
Again,
in the B range.
Yeah, he should torpedo Peter Navarro tomorrow.
Well, or
just keep Scott Bessent out there doing his thing.
I mean, I will say that I have been happy with all of his appointments, and I'm anxious to see how once they get their sea legs and get really rolling, how things are going to go.
So,
I think Hegseth is going to be fine.
You think he's going to survive?
I do.
Have you listened to any of his former deputies on their various podcasts?
Yeah. I mean,
spouting whatever they're spouting.
It's jealousy. I mean, you have to when it comes to an institution like the Pentagon that is so more entrenched. I mean, look, this has been entrenched since before Eisenhower left office.
Sure.
When he talked about the military-industrial complex, that was in the 1950s. That was the 1950s. And they have been there the entire time. There has been no cutbacks in that institution from the standpoint of the grift and the corruption and the entrenchment of the same companies and organizations and people that just churn in and out, the revolving door, become a general, go work for Lockheed Martin, become a general, go work for Boeing, whatever, you name it. And that it's going to take someone like Pete Hegseth to break it up. And it's going to be very destructive and disruptive because they are going to howl bloody murder because their gravy train is going to get shut down.
So do you agree with the assessment that he needs a loyal institutionalist to come alongside him who knows where all the bodies are buried, but is impervious to the noise?
I'm not certain that exists.
Yeah.
And I
would have thought it would exist with Dan Caldwell.
Well, but Caldwell hasn't been inside the Pentagon. I mean, it's not. I mean, I think if you've been inside the walls for any length of time,
you're corrupted. Yeah.
I mean,
that's a great point.
I'm sorry if you're in the Pentagon and you aren't corrupted. There's a feeling that you're corrupted.
Then rise up. Make yourself known.
Right. Exactly. Speak now.
Yeah.
Speak now. Because that is the most, I think it's the most entrenched of all of the institutions of the federal government. It is the one that has been the biggest problem.
Well, here's an idea. Do you think bringing back in some sort of leadership capacity alongside of Pete, some of the generals who've been torpedoed by the deep state within the Pentagon and within previous administrations might be a good idea?
The problem is
a McChrystal.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know enough to know who is not compromised.
Yeah.
So
it's a big job, and they want $1 trillion of more money, and there's no way that's not being completely waste, fraud, and abused.
Yeah, I mean, it needs that they need to get that figured out. So
they need to Uber Doge.
I hope
the Pentagon.
I hope for
Uber
great things to happen over the next 100 days. So we'll do a repeat of the grade 100 days hence.
Yeah, the biggest part of that, regardless of, I'm a broken record, get this tax
bill thing
done.
Yeah,
get
the tax bill done in the next 100 days.
You're not going to get everything you want. Sorry,
but
that doesn't work that way.
That will solve a significant.
You get 80%. Bite your tongue and
get it.
Vote. Put your card in. Press the button.
Yeah. All right. So, well, let's jump to a quick
hot takes.
Hot take. Remember to like and subscribe.
Please do so. It helps grow the show.
Yes, we appreciate your listenership.
The Time interview with President Trump. He said that he has made 200 deals on tariffs. 200 deals? Who has he made deals with? Is there actually any deal at this point?
I believe that he is referring to sub-deals within the negotiations we're doing. And Martha, if there are 180...
But those aren't actual deals.
Martha, if there are 180 countries, there are 18 important trading partners. Let's put China to the side because that's a special negotiation. There's 17 important trading partners, and we have a process in place over the next 90 days to negotiate with them. Some of those are moving along very well, especially with the Asian countries.
So this goes to the point you were talking about earlier. These are sub deals.
Yeah, well, sub deal. I don't even know what that means, but
well, I'm assuming it means that, like, if you are, I name some, Japan, and you're importing to us something specific, and it's like, oh, well, we're not gonna put as much of a tariff on that because that's something that we really care about. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Listen, I go back to my initial point. Keep Scott Bessent out there.
Yeah. I mean,
explaining the nuance. This is complex stuff. He probably understands it better than anybody. He's in the heart of it. He's a really effective communicator on this, and he calms the markets in a way that the other clowns don't. The head of the Secretary of Commerce, what's his name? I'm blanking on it.
I want to say Lutnick, but
Lutnick. Yeah. He doesn't calm the markets. He doesn't calm the markets. Peter Navarro.
He's a bond guy.
Yeah. He doesn't calm the markets. Peter Navarro doesn't calm the markets. If they don't speak clear, they speak with emotion and a heightened sense of self-purpose.
I think you just nailed it. You just nailed where the difference is. It's how they communicate in the style. They are more emotional. Bessent is a just the facts, ma'am.
This is what we're doing. This is what we're going to achieve. We have 90 days to do it. We're really having some great success with our Asian partners, which is what we have to do to bring China in.
Right.
And we'll see where things go.
Yeah. This is probably the best pick that Trump has made.
Oh, for sure.
His cabinet.
Yeah, I think so.
On this deal. Treasury.
Yeah, I've been really impressed. I knew nothing about him before.
I didn't either.
But I've been really impressed.
I don't even know if I'd have heard of him.
No.
Super impressed.
I've been incredibly impressed. The way he handles himself, the way he communicates, his clear understanding of the issues. And it's been nice. It's
5 stars.
Yes, 5 stars for the Treasury pick.
Okay. Well, thanks, folks, for listening, watching, hanging in there with us.
Yes.
Until next time.
God bless.
Have a great one. See ya.